Well, good morning, everybody. I'm sorry to jump the queue. I'm actually an academic, and today I'm working in a lab, which is sort of great, and I have a timely schedule to commit to. So apologies, I've bumped the queue, and so my name is Blunn. I am the Theme Professor for Health and Wellbeing at the University of Portsmouth. And by trade, I am a professor of bioengineering. And I do have some responsibility on the ERDF site programme. The title of my talk is Working with Academics. And many of the SMEs among you may think that that's an oxymoron, but I can assure you it's not. So my qualifications for talking about working with academics as far as SMEs are concerned, and this is going to be a personal view, is that in my research career, I've worked with numerous SMEs on different projects. These have been both research and consultancy projects. I've developed 3 spin-out companies. One of them is really successful, actually, but unfortunately, I'm not making any money out of that. I have been Entrepreneur of the Year at UCL, which was my former university, and I've been awarded the Consultants Award at UCL. In addition, over my research career, I filed for 32 patents, and I have to say the best patents are the ones that have been in collaboration with industry. So this is a personalised view. So one of the things that I think is really important is at the start, we should understand each other's roles and requirements. In other words, we should understand what drives academics and what drives SMEs. And no longer do academics, if they ever did, live in an ivory tower. And an academic life is, or can be, quite stressful and tough, particularly if you're successful. Academics have teaching commitments, they have research commitments, and they have administrative roles. And often they don't understand the drivers for SMEs. And of course, people involved in SMEs are running a really complex business. And when you're starting out in an SME, you often don't know where the next month's paycheck is going to come from. And there are other issues like hiring staff, HR and IP issues. I think the thing that is so important when you collaborate with an academic, or when an academic collaborates with an SME, is communication. And that's very important. And you need to develop or allow time to develop the relationship between the SME and the academic. And if you get it right, you can get beneficial and exciting rewards that involve generating new opportunities. And very often when you get it right, you have a repeat relationship. So my first message is that we should communicate really well with each other, and we shouldn't forget each other's day job. So I think Guy has touched on this. So there are advantages for SMEs and there are advantages for academics when we talk about collaboration. SMEs are able to access the creativity and different ways of thinking which academics have in spades. Academics can input into new concepts, and often it's possible to generate new and shared intellectual property. Academics live in, hopefully, the state-of-the-art research equipment and facilities, and this may be important for vital skills training for the SME. Academics are also great at validating new products and processes, and sort of can give evidence that the work that you're doing as SMEs are really valuable, is really valuable. So they can provide activity, and of course, they can provide access to research. The advantages to academics, I think, from a personal point of view, are around something called research impact. And we're going to cover that in a second or two. Academics really welcome the fact that their knowledge and their insights and advice may be used to solve real-world problems. Academics may also use the experience that they gain from working with SMEs as exemplars in teaching to help students get ready for the real world of industry. There is also the opportunity for academics to access new funding opportunities. And of course, one of the major drivers with academics is actually money, bringing in money for research, which leads to papers and to increased citations. So personally, I liken the SME journey with academics to two streams of traffic joining a motorway. Where you get it right, the traffic moves along the motorway very smoothly. The academic and the SME, for a while, has shared objectives. They can generate patents and they can access funding through applying for grants. And the academic, of course, gets impact. It should be known that after a while along this smooth route, along this motorway, SMEs and academics may diverge, because SMEs are more into devices and applications and making money. What you don't want to happen at the very start is some form of car crash. And that's where you have to be aware of each other's limitations and each other's drivers. And I have to admit that for SMEs, navigating the academic environment can be really daunting. You not only work with an academic, but you may be talking to a number of different individuals within the university setup about contracts, about approvals for your work, about the generation of intellectual property and how you share that, about how you get access to the facilities offered by the university, about publication rights, about sharing data and GDPR issues and costings. Now, the university puts these hurdles in place to protect both themselves and the SME. But these hurdles are really quite low. And they're getting better. We're getting better at dealing with SMEs, I have to say. However, I'd be the first to admit that agility is not perfect. So I think Guy has also covered this a bit. So what are the opportunities for SMEs to interact with universities? Well, they vary in terms of their complexity, they vary in terms of their costs, and they vary in terms of their return of information for the SME. As Guy said, you can have student projects at the BSc or MSc level. And of course, that's relatively inexpensive. You can develop degree apprenticeships, which means that as SMEs, you have to invest in an employee. You can also have student placements and internships within your company. You can support MRes students, and MRes students are a bit like MSc students. They are essentially students that come in for a year into the university, get an MRes, and an MRes in comparison to an MSc is more research-based. So they have a significant research project, which you as an SME may specify. You can also undertake knowledge transfer partnerships. You can support PhDs, and often you only have to provide half of the studentship. But it's for 3 years at least. And you can support postdocs through grants that you apply for jointly. So there are various ways that as SMEs, you may be able to collaborate with academics in the university environment. One of the key things that I think brings SMEs and academics together is funding. And for significant amounts of funding, often we have to apply jointly for grants. And again, we should understand the drivers. And this is a list of the drivers for SMEs and for academics. I'm just going to pick out one or two. SMEs often don't understand why they need the complexity that academics offer. At the same time, particularly with Innovate type grants, the academics do not really understand that these are more business type of grants than they are research grant applications. I think the way to get around all of this is, again, communication between the academic and the SME, and to be aware of the partner's limitations. It's no good, for example, a SME coming to an academic and saying, I have an Innovate application to put in within the next 2 weeks. Can you help me? I think you need to horizon scan and to allow time and planning for the collaboration and application for these grants. And when you apply for a grant, I think as SMEs, it might be useful to be aware of the university grant procedure. And every university has a process for applying for grants. This particularly is the university process for the University of Portsmouth. If you're an academic and you're applying for a grant, even if you're doing this jointly with an SME, you have to fill in a form which says you are going to apply for a grant. It's called the intention to apply. You have to construct costings. Those costings have to be approved at the faculty level. And all the time that you're doing these processes, you are no doubt writing the grant. When you've written the grant, often, though not always, you have to go through a peer review process. So this takes time, although not every step has to be completed, and it depends on the type of grant. So there are other types of grants as well as research grants. There are commercial grants, and this is where academics provide a service. And this means that there are no publication rights for the academics, no intellectual property rights for the academics. The downside for the SME, though, is that these grants tend to be more expensive because the university essentially is not really getting back papers and intellectual property. There's also consultancy. This is where academics provide a service that can include advice or know-how, and the academics may take a personal fee from the consultancy that SMEs pay to the university. They may take this personally, or they may plough that fee back into the department. One of my key gripes with the University of Portsmouth, and I know that we have various academics on this Zoom meeting, is that the money that you donate to the department, you have to ask to actually take some of that money to invest in research. And additionally, at the end of the year, the university takes back all that money into a central pot. So I think there is something called academic incentive that the university needs to address. Universities really like working with SMEs because it's important, because the universities are able to demonstrate impact. And this is becoming increasingly important in terms of getting funding for their research from the UK government. Impact is defined as an effect on or the change or benefit to the economy and society. And there's something that is happening next year called the Research Excellence Framework, the REF. And this is a major assessment for the distribution of the UK government's research funds. And in the next REF, which happens in 2021, and everybody is preparing for it at the moment, impact will be worth 25% of those funds, so a considerable amount. And of course, if as an academic, you're working with an SME that has a product and you've helped the SME to develop that product, that is impact. And you can evidence that impact in impact case studies. Something new that the UK government is introducing is called the Knowledge Exchange Framework, or KEF. And the idea is that this increases the effectiveness and the use of knowledge which have been developed in universities funded by the public purse. Ideally, this knowledge will provide businesses and other users with access to world-class knowledge and expertise that is embedded in educational institutions. And we are talking about the first knowledge exchange framework exercise. So academics really welcome collaboration with industry, primarily because it may bring in extra funds, it may bring in increased impact. And I think the UK government want to foster this collaboration more and more because they recognise that the universities are funded by the taxpayer and they want the taxpayers' money to promote industry and commerce for UK PLC. So thank you.